Since Jersey's about to embark on a major school building project, could you give us some idea of how much this total build cost was, how many square metres there are? The other curious point, I only noticed one bicycle on the scheme. I didn't see much in the way of transport. How is transport? Because transport in schools is a huge problem in Jersey. Is that a problem now?
Yeah, there's a lot of spaces for bicycles. There's probably about space for about 500 built bicycles on the site. So, building was about £200 a square foot. So it's £40 million in total. I can't quite remember that should be able to. I can give you some more information later, but that's basically it was average of what schools were being built before the BSF programme was closed. As you know, the government wants people to build schools for £14.50 a square metre now, which is impossible, I think. And the industry has sort of said that too. So, yeah.
Good. Well done for getting on the shortlist again.
Thank you, Steve. It really did lack street presence there. It's very narrow pavement, and you couldn't really see the school from that road. So we felt that was something that needed to be changed in some way. And we did look at keeping some of these buildings because the school really enjoyed them, but they just weren't wide enough. And as you can see, the corridors were a little bit too narrow. So I'm afraid they did have to go, but we did spend quite a long time thinking about it. So the school itself is run by these 4 people who are quite amazing. They know more about the BSF process than I think anyone in the country, and managed to make sure that we won the process with land lease. It's a very big school. It's 1,800 school, all for girls, and then there's 200 staff. So it's one of the biggest, certainly the biggest school we've ever designed, and probably one of the biggest schools in South London. There's a real emphasis on science in the school by Helen on the right there, who's a fantastic science teacher. And they are a very high-performing school. They're about 88% of students get a grade A to C at GCSE level, which is quite staggering given they have one of the highest deprived percentages of kids in their school in that area of London. The other interesting thing is because it was a competition process, the BSF process, so we were against other teams at the time, and obviously with contractors, was that they enjoyed the modern architecture of that school, and they really knew a lot about modern architecture. In fact, I'd just been to see a David Chipperfield exhibition at the Design Museum, which was certainly new to me with teachers. I hadn't come across that before. So they had a real familiarity with the idea of effectively enjoying that modern period of architecture from the 1950s. So I suppose when it came to trying to look at what concepts we could have for keeping the buildings on site and how we might build the new buildings. IIT, because Mies was one of their favourite architects, was something that we looked at and they enjoyed us looking at. And I think it was this area of IIT where the buildings slide and play, and actually external places become created by this sliding. It's almost like outdoor rooms are created. So we thought there was an opportunity to have some of that in our building. But the other thing that happened to happen on our buildings, this is the site here with the field above, Garrett Green below, and these are the grey of the existing buildings, was that the key to the brief and key to our idea was that the students would never be in temporary accommodation because it was going to take 5 years to build. They were never going to be in temporary accommodation. They were always only going to move once. So that basically meant that the master plan you had to sort of design the construction process essentially. So I'll show you just the sequence that occurred here. So, and I think it's sort of designed itself. So it starts off where they're the only 2 sites you could put buildings because we couldn't demolish buildings till we built new buildings. So phase 1 was we had the opportunity of building 2 buildings there. And so the first ones we built were the maths building in blue and the sports building. We then demolished those buildings in red, which were 2-storey teaching blocks, built the new Gateway building, which is the Business Skills Centre. Next, we demolished another teaching block and some little smaller buildings in between, and then that was our biggest phase. So these were all of these were a year, because what we had to do is demolitions in the summer holidays, piling in the sort of Christmas holidays, etc., to make sure noisy work wasn't done during the year. We then demolished the dining hall and the final teaching block, and there you have the final phase of the project. And I think what we quite enjoy about, and here, sorry, this is what you can also look at. You can see the idea of that MIT coming through here, the way these buildings have different arrangements. They also always get views out into the landscape by sliding them away from each other. It's something that changes the perspective of those views inside the buildings. I think I said it designed itself. In a way, I often describe it as like Sudoku, because in a way it was a puzzle that had a sort of inevitable logic to being solved. And in a way, I couldn't see any other element to deal with it. Each of those faculty buildings is a particular subject, so you can see them all there, highlighted quite clearly. And I think this diagram that we drew very early on, probably in about week 7 of the process, BSF is very, very quick, is where we tried to have, to give the building more presence on the street on Burtnwood Road. And this is the building as it was complete, very cluttered street furniture, and then effectively a very bold entrance with this double portal to really make sure that front door was signified from the street itself. And then as you go through, the campus is slowly revealed to you with this central access through the middle.